What's going on, my babies? Welcome back to another episode of Can Heaven. As always, I apologize for any noises in the background in advance and anything of that nature. And as always, I like to start these off with a disclaimer by stating that these are for entertainment purposes only and to always do your own research, come to your own conclusions, to have your own decisions, to make your own discernments. And I believe in your ability to do so. So today's episode is going to be one for the deep thinkers because I am a very deep thinker and I have a tendency to have a habit of overthinking about things to the point where I'm like, wow, that doesn't really make any sense. So this is going to be an episode for my deep thinkers. So some of the things that I've been contemplating as of recently is how to get people to help themselves. And the reason I say how to get people to help themselves is because I can't do the work for you, right? So what I've been thinking about is like, how do I get people to feel motivated? And it's hard to answer that question because people motivate themselves through different ways. Some people, they are motivated from what they can consume, right? Like they can be like, oh, I'm going to work out for 30 minutes and afterwards I'm going to treat myself to some fancy meal. Or some people will clean their rooms and say, okay, if I clean my room, I get to go buy something. And that will be my prize, right? People are treating themselves to a prize, and that prize is their reward system. And their reward system is how they get themselves to feel motivated. And so, how do you get yourself to feel motivated to do nothing? Or better yet, to do something, but get nothing out of it? And the reason I say that is because you need to have this want to do something for absolutely no reason. You just have to want something to do it. And for most people, it's really hard to get to that point because we live in a world where whatever we consume is like our reward. It's our reward system. We feel pleasure or the dopamine receptors in our brain go off if we get this thing in return, right? Like if I'm being a good person for the sake of being a good person, I get nothing in return. But if I'm being a good person for the rewards of, I don't know, getting to say that I'm a good person or getting to buy myself whatever I want when I want, then that is a better reward system than getting nothing, right? You want to get something out of what you're doing, right? Most people or some people have that way of thinking. And because of that way of thinking, we never really do things just to do things. And it's put us as a society or as people, as a species, under a kind of risk of not really surviving and thriving in life. And obviously, we're going to survive till tomorrow. Or if we don't, we don't. You know what I mean? Like, we don't really have control over us surviving, but we do have an ability to survive long term wise. Like, if I do something now, it'll benefit my kids. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I mean by longevity. If I take care of my money now, my future kids will be able to go to college because I'll be able to afford college for them. And if they go to college and they get a really good job, then they'll be able to afford for their kids, right? So that's what I mean in longevity or long term wise. And it doesn't have to be that specific route. Like, I don't have to go to college and get a really good paying job for the fact of getting my kids into college. Because what if they don't want college? So it's really, really specific to a person's need. And because of that reason, we usually go based off what our dopamine receptors are telling us to do. We only want happiness. Not everybody, obviously, but for some people, that's what really motivates them. The dopamine receptors going off in our brain telling us, oh, you know what, that felt good. Versus something that's like, oh, that did not feel good. I don't want to experience that again, and I don't want anybody else to experience that again. And so, for obviously my deep thinkers, it's something that's really pushed to have this reward system. Like, if you're a sales person, then your reward is getting money every time that you sell something. So what are you going to do? You're going to sell something to your best ability, right? You're going to be like, oh, I have to sell these weight loss pills. So let me go talk to people who don't feel safe in their skin. And by safe in their skin, what I mean is people who are like insecure, or people who don't love the way that they look, or don't feel like they look good. And for that reason, people who are sales representatives in, I don't know, these products of beauty, they know what to push. And what they push is the narrative of, you don't love yourself. This is going to fix that. So buy this. And most people who are kind of clueless, and I don't want to say clueless, people who are in the dark about that idea, they buy these things and they say, well, this is going to fix it. Right? Like the anti-aging creams. They target it towards women who are in their 50s or in their 60s and have, crow's feet, or who have um, laugh lines or smile lines, or people who have really wrinkly skin. And they say, well, you should buy this. Why? Because it's going to fix that problem. You don't like aging because aging means you're getting closer to your death. Let me fix that for you. Because most people, I feel like they're afraid of dying, or they're just sad about the fact that they're going to die. And it's not necessarily like a fear, but it's not something that you feel reward for, right? Like nothing, you don't get anything out of dying. It's just it. And because we as people don't know what's on the other side of death, it usually scares us, or it makes us sad, or it makes us worry. And so they're able to push that narrative of like, oh, you don't feel safe in your skin, or you feel like you're getting closer to that thing that you're scared of, that nobody talks about, because nobody talks about death. Why? Because it's not something that's pleasurable. It's not something that sets off your dopamine receptors. Every time you think of death, you don't be like, oh my gosh, yeah, I can't wait. You know what I mean? Unless you're a really depressed person and you're like, I can't wait to get the fuck out of here. Or you're just like a realist and you're like, I can't wait to get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? Like, unless you're that type of person where it's a reward, it's very targeted. It's very targeted towards you. Because only you know whether or not that's really going to make you happy or it's not. And so for that reason, it's got me thinking into this kind of like a snowball effect in my brain, where I'm like, okay, well, if people are really worried about these certain things, then most of the time they're going to do things for the pleasure that it brings them, regardless of whether that pleasure is one term or it's just like a really quick little spark. It's just a little snap and then it's gone. And for that reason, most people are doing what they can. Like, there's this kid who was a Twitch streamer for a little bit. His name is Sneeko. Or Sneeko, or Sneaky, I don't know his name. But the point is that he pushes this narrative about women, and about how most women are just out to be gold diggers, and most women are just out to do this thing, or, whatever the case is. Because they want that reward. They want either your money, or they want your resources, or they want to use you to some extent because of the pleasure that it brings them, or the pleasure that it will bring their lives. And for a long time, I was like, I don't understand why this kid is pushing that narrative. Because if that was really the case, you would only see gold diggers, and why would people be with guys who don't make a lot of money? Because if that were the case, a lot of guys would be single. Because not every single man is a rich entrepreneur or a rich businessman. And point blank, period, not everybody is rich. And not everybody is living the dream life. Not everybody has, the most beautiful complexion. Not everybody is the most perfect body type. You know what I mean? So for a long time, I was like, why does he push that narrative? And I realized that the reason that he pushed that narrative was because he's targeting men who feel that specific thing. And so he's targeting this audience group that is these specific men who believe that idea to be true. Just like how beauty products target these specific women who have these specific insecurities. He's targeting men with these specific insecurities to try and get them to help themselves. But he's obviously not doing it in a conventional way because he's doing it in a way that works for him. He gets the views because there's a lot of dudes who feel that way. And for that reason, it got me thinking, okay, well, if he's doing this, he might not be doing it out of strategy. He might not be that smart enough to realize what he's doing. But he's still doing it and it's still working for him because there's people out there who feel like that. And so it got me thinking about the spiritual community and why a lot of people dislike him and why a lot of people dislike Andrew Tate. And it got me thinking about, okay, well, what does Andrew Tate do? He pushes this narrative that most women are, not the greatest. And he also pushes the same ideas that Sneako pushes. And then it got me thinking, okay, what is he trying to do? What is he targeting? What is he trying to say? What is he trying to say, but he just doesn't know how to say? And then watching this interview with him when he got out of prison and him talking about prison got me thinking, well, he knows what he's doing. He's targeting these specific men because these specific men are making him money. He's doing something for the benefit that it's reaping, right? So he's going to push this narrative. And then it got me thinking about why the spiritual community talks about there being a spiritual warfare. And that is because most people are doing things that benefit them because that's what motivates them to keep going. Most people, they get motivated by the level of wealth that they have. Most people are motivated by the level of success that they have. Most people are benefited by that dopamine receptors that go off when you get something that you yourself specifically want or you yourself specifically enjoy, right? Like if you look at, I don't know, a tweaker or a homeless person who's hooked on drugs, that's what they are doing. That is what everybody is doing. Nobody just opens the door to be nice for people. Well, I say nobody, but that's not true. I'd say some people are living out of this animalistic need for their dopamine receptors to go off. And because of this reason, most people don't understand what other people are doing because it takes a lot of observation to recognize what people are doing when they're doing the things that they're doing. And I say deep thinkers, but I really mean people watchers. Because most people are not people watchers because you don't really care about those things. Most people only care about their specific interests. And if their specific interests don't hit that dopamine receptor, most likely you're not going to do it, right? Like if you're really, 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 really bad at something, most likely you are going to be turned off from that hobby or that specific idea or that specific thing, right? Like if you drink a specific flavor of soda and you really, let's say for example, you are disgusted by root beer and specifically orange soda. Are you going to buy orange soda at the store when you have the capability of going out or you have the idea to say, I want a soda right now, let's go to the store? Are you going to go and buy those sodas that you dislike? Probably not. Why? Because you're going to the store to buy something that you actually want to enjoy. Not to go to the store to buy something that you're not going to enjoy because that's how you operate. That's how people operate. And for those people watchers, they just kind of sit there and they just watch. I'm going to specifically watch you to see what you do, to see how you move, and see what I learn from what you're doing. And see what I can observe. Not specifically what I can learn, but what can I observe from what you're doing. And that's what hits their specific receptors. Like for me, what hits my specific receptors is watching people and then finding out why they do certain things. Like I gain pleasure from watching somebody and then putting all of the pieces together and being like, oh, okay, this person does this for this reason. And I like finding out the deeper meaning behind why people do the things that they do. I like finding out the people's reasonings. To me, that's something that I really enjoy. another thing that hits my receptors is learning. So when I'm in a new environment, I thrive because I'm in love with the idea of learning. But after I've learned something, it's not something that I want to sit there and be there and just exist in that world, because now it's not hitting my dopamine receptors. So for me, it's I've come to this learning, like I've come to this point in my learning from watching myself that I don't like mundane tasks, and I don't like to have meaningless conversations with people, because I don't learn anything from asking you how your day went. I don't learn anything from asking you the same question over and over. Did the sun come up today? Yes. Okay. Did the sun go down today? Yes. Okay. And asking that just over and over and over, repeatedly. And because of that reason, I've come to this conclusion that the learning receptors go off when I'm having meaningful and really deep conversations. And so what I've been doing to myself is kind of like forcing myself to do really mundane things and to really enjoy those mundane things, because it puts me in this new learning. It puts me in this ability to have this dopamine receptor go off when I tell it to. And so it's kind of pushing me in this direction of like, okay, I really enjoy learning, so let's enjoy why I don't like these certain things. I obviously know right off the bat that if I don't enjoy fish, I know that this taste is something that I don't enjoy. But what about it do I not enjoy? Because most people, when you ask them, why don't you like that thing? You say, well, it annoys me, or it bothers me, or I just don't like it. But can you go into a lot more detail about it? Probably not. Why? Because you're not caring about that, because you don't do research about it, because you don't dig deep into it. And what shoots off my receptors is digging deep into things, and to go further and further and further, and to let it snowball and let it build on itself and really hone in and get really deep into these ideas for the purpose of just going deep into them. And that's a unconditional way of learning, just like how everything that people do is conditional, right? You go out to the store, the only condition that you have for yourself is to buy something that you're going to like. You don't go to the store just to go to the store, unless you just go to the store for the sake of going to the store because it hits that receptor. So you will go to the store with the intention of just going to the store. But most of the time you end up leaving with stuff, because that hits your receptor even more and even more and even more and even more. And what we want as people, from simply observing myself, is you want more and more, more and more and more and more and more and more. More of what? More. You want more happiness. You want those dopamine receptors to go off. You want them to go off more and more and more and more. And you want them to continue to go off, even if you don't specifically have a reason for those things to go off. So I've been getting to this conclusion, and I'm going to wrap this up with this, that from watching myself, I've been able to get to this point of doing things for the sake of doing things, for there to not necessarily be a pleasure receptor going off. Like, I myself don't really enjoy fish. So when fish is presented to me, I do my best to just eat it. Like, I don't tell, like, if I go to my friend's house and they have fish, I'm not going to sit there and not eat, because I don't like fish. And so I've kind of gotten to this point where I'm living life unconditionally. I do things with this experience that it's just as good as whatever is making my dopamine receptors go off. Most people run with that dopamine receptor. And for that reason, I don't want to be that type of person that just goes and, I don't know, chases fame or fortune or, all of these pleasures that life has to offer, or all of these rewards that life has to offer for the sake of getting to this reward. Because I realize that that way of being puts me in a really egoistic point of view. Like, if I am really living out of my likes and dislikes, and I go to my friend's house and they're like, hey, we made you a plate, we set you, we put this whole plate together for you. We even put a little place in our dining room for you to sit down with us and so that we can eat together. And I sit there and I'm like, oh, sorry, I don't like fish. I don't want that to be the outcome of the situation. Like, not to please them and not for the sake that I want to, like fish, but for the sake of, like, you know what, this person took the time to cook me food, and not even just specifically me, but they took the time to set a place up so that I can eat with them, and they did not exclude me from this event of just having dinner. And to me, that says a lot about these people. So, in return for their hard work, I'm going to enjoy this plate for the sake of enjoying this plate, for the sake of enjoying their hard work, rather than to sit here and say, I don't like fish. Because, I don't know, it's just something about, like, there's moments in life that you cherish. And what I cherish is the work that people didn't have to put in. Like, the fact that if I go to my friend's house and they set me a plate, even if that food that they set up for me isn't something that I enjoy, I'm going to eat it. And the only reason I'm going to eat it is because they put their hard work and effort into it. And that is my reward. And it's not a reward itself, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have to do that. It's not something that's gonna kill me if I do or don't do. But what it will do for me is say, you know what, I'm putting an effort towards understanding this specific taste and not really having a meaning towards this taste, because at the end of the day, it's just food. And at the end of the day, I don't have to go out and order fish, but if somebody puts fish on my plate, I'm not going to sit there and be like, disgusting. You made something that I find repulsive. And I'm not going to sit there and downplay their hard work. And for me, I've been getting to this point in my life where I'm like, okay, I need to live my life unconditionally. So when people do things that are very kind, that they don't have to do, I'm going to sit here and enjoy it. Even if what I'm sitting here and enjoying is not something that I actually really like. Like, if my friends are like, oh, let's go play tennis. I don't fucking like tennis. You know what I mean? I'm not going to go play tennis. Like, if you told me, hey, let's go get up and play tennis, why would I want to do that? I don't enjoy tennis. I'm not going to go do that. But if you are excited and you say, okay, well, guess what? I already prepaid this tennis court, and I already bought this tennis racket and this ball so that me and you could spend quality time together. That's what I'm going to enjoy. I'm going to spend that time with you, not really enjoying the tennis playing, you know what I mean? But I will be there and be present for the sake of that moment that we're going to share in time, that's going to be recorded in my motherfucking brain. You know what I mean? So I've been getting to this point through all of these ideas that I'm just trying to live life unconditionally and not just do things to do things, because I'm obviously not going to just accept whatever life is giving me all of the time. And I'm going to have my diligence to be like, okay, that's not really beneficial. Like, I'm not going to go to my friend's house every single weekend, and they make fish on every single Saturday just to go eat with them. I'm not going to do that. But if they invite me and they say, hey, we want you to come because we want to enjoy your company, I will be like, oh yeah, definitely, I'll go. Because it's the moment in time that matters. And it's not the activity itself. But I'm also not going to do that with really ridiculous things. Like, if you tell me, oh, let's go do drugs together because I buy you these, whoop-de-whoop. I'm not going to do that because I'm like, what are you doing? And at that point, that's when I use my diligence. You know what I mean? Like, it's a balancing act of, like, It's love, but it's also having enough self-love to be like, okay, yeah, I should not do that. Like if you invite me to go drink, you're like, I bought this whole bottle just for you, and it's like this big ass thing. I'm probably not going to be like, oh yeah, cool, let's go. No, I'll be like, oh, I'll take a couple shots with you. But this whole thing, you need to relax. You're trying to freaking, trying to get me gone. So it's a it's a mixture of diligence, but also having the unconditional acceptance and the unconditional love for life itself. And that's what's hitting my dopamine receptors. Caring about the moments that I'm sharing, caring about the moments of life itself, because at one point I will die. And there's nothing past that point, at least not to my understanding. And I've been getting to this point where it's not necessarily about like all of these dopamine receptors, because if I'm going out with somebody and they're like, oh, I bought you this fish, I'm not going to sit there and probably really enjoy the fish, but it doesn't mean that I have to sit there and like despise the whole moment. You know what I mean? Like I can still enjoy life even with the inconveniences that arise. So I'm getting to this point where I'm like, I have to have unconditional love and support for the things that are going on around me, as long as those things that are going on around me are not something that's detrimental towards other people or myself. That's why I say, like, if you're inviting me to go rob a bank, I'm not gonna be like, yeah, let's go do it because I want to spend time with you. Like, no, you're not doing something that's beneficial towards anybody. Like, that's not good for you. That's not good for them. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not down with it. So I use unconditional acceptance very loosely, but it's more so like I've been at this point where I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna let these small inconveniences ruin my whole day. And usually I'd let one inconvenience ruin my whole day. So I begin to this point where I'm like, these dopamine receptors don't really have their own spark. And I can create that spark if I really wanted to through finding the beauty of these beautiful moments, because it's not all about the rewards that you're getting. It's about what the moment really is about. And what the moment is about creates these receptors that go off in my brain. Like, if I really, 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 really love chocolate and you invite me out to go have fish versus inviting me out to go have chocolate, I'm not going to say no to going out to eating fish with you because I rather have chocolate. And so it's kind of like finding the beautiful moments. It's about finding the beautiful moments in life without having to look for them. You know what I mean? Like, it's about the moments that you share with people, because that's the reward. To me, life is the reward. So it's not something that I have to be searching for. I don't have to go out and buy chocolate for my dopamine receptors to go off. I don't have to go out to buy myself the top of the line car so that my dopamine receptors will go off. I don't have to have the most successful life in order for my dopamine receptors to go off, because at the end of the day, what is a success is what I identify as a success. So it's very targeted towards me. So what is motivating me is life itself. The fact that I only get to be this person one time. The fact that I only get to live this moment once. And I know it's really stupid to say, but like YOLO. You know what I mean? Like, it's that simple. And that's what's hitting my dopamine receptors. And yeah, life can be pretty mundane, and life can have its moments of like repetitiveness, or the same things over and over. Like, I go to work, I wake up, go to work, wake up, go to work, and then come home every day. But it doesn't mean that I have to dread the same task. And I can find ways to enjoy those things that I don't necessarily enjoy. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it, just because this has already gone over. So I'm gonna end this here. With that being said, thanks for tuning in and tapping into What Kind of Heaven. I upload Monday and Fridays at 8 p.m. Mountain Time. And if spiritual stuff or deep thinking or psychology or philosophy is your cup of tea, I recommend tuning in and tapping in, because that's pretty much all I talk about. So with that being said, thanks for tuning in and tapping in, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Yeah. You feel that? Kid, please. You're gonna make my soul